What's up, all you Raven lunatics? Welcome to another episode of the Talk Louder podcast, where we geek out on all things rock and roll. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Leave us your likes and comments. You can also leave likes and comments on our Facebook page. Follow us on iTunes, Spotify, Instagram at TalkLouder_podcast. And of course, our website, talklouderpodcast.com, where you'll find links to our merch and all of our previous episodes. I'm Metal Dave Glessner, along with my co-host, Jason McMaster. And today we are joined for the second time by Raven bassist vocalist John Gallagher, a new wave of British heavy metal legend. Always a great time talking with him. They've got a new album out called All Hell's Breaking Loose.
It's a fucking burner.
It's a great record, man. John shared a couple tracks with us before it was released. And I think Jason and I kind of got giddy exchanging emails and texts going, whoa. So, yeah, it's an amazing record.
Over the top.
Of course, rounded out by John's brother, Mark Gallagher, on guitar, and drummer Mike Heller, who's making his third recorded appearance with Raven. He's done a live album, the previous studio album, which was called Metal City, and now the new one, All Hell's Breaking Loose. Fair to say he's been a great addition to the band. So, yeah. John Gallagher, man, what a great guy. I love his humor. He's a lot of fun to hang out with.
Not only one of my heroes, as I feel like when I talk to him, I'm learning things, either just lore of Raven or lore about him, his brother. I heard stories today that I had heard lingering bits and pieces of stories about that he kind of clarifies about. I mean, I didn't know when it was that Mark was injured that almost caused him to not be able to walk ever again. And obviously he's still walking and playing rock and roll guitar like nobody's business, and doctors thought he was not going to make it.
They were going to cut off his legs.
It's kind of crazy. Well, they thought he was going to die.
Yeah. So now he's doing the Pete Townsend knee slide across the stage.
They're an unbelievable band, and I'm super proud to be able to say that I've heard some of it this early in the game. You mentioned legendary new wave of British heavy metal people. Our last interview was with Brian Tatler. I mean, we're kind of like hitting the nail right on the heavy metal hammer.
Yeah.
Or hitting the heavy metal nail with that sledgehammer, so to speak. Sorry.
Yeah.
I feel really, really good that the founding member of Diamond Head and the founding member of Raven are our buddies this month. Yeah. Of course, and with Brian, that episode we talk about Diamond Head, of course, but we talk about him being the latest addition to take in Quinny's voice in Saxon, on lead guitar rather. So it's going to be Talk Louder's. We've been having a lot of fun, and I don't know if people listening and watching can tell that we're having fun, but having our heavy metal heroes on the show has been enlightening and just super cool. A reason to get out of bed. And,
I love that we cover a lot of bases, I mean, we
as long as it has to do with the new wave of British heavy metal. I'm kidding, but I mean, because
a lot of bases as long as they're in a box. Yeah,
right. but the new record by Raven is totally smoking.
Yeah, all hell's breaking loose.
Yeah, and June 30th is release day.
Yes.
People, if you're an old school Raven fan, or if you have your opinion about the ups and downs of the styles of Raven and decisions made and songs they've written, and if you love the old school Raven, you're going to have to give this a chance. Some of the songs are totally crushing in old Raven fashion. Mike Heller is, I can't put it into words. As insane as you think your favorite Raven song might be, that's how he is on the drums. As John says himself, Mike has leveled up Raven just in a handful of years, and they're back to where they're back to Wiped Out. They're back to the greatest moments of All for One. It's incredible. And like I said, I can't champion Raven enough because no one sounds like Raven.
Yeah.
Mic drop. So.
Yeah. You sent that to me in a text, and I thought, that's very appropriate. And for those who are listening and watching, Jason is, without a doubt, the world's biggest Raven fan. If you've seen Jason play live with his various bands, he wears Raven t-shirts all the time.
I don't know if I'm the biggest Raven fan, but I have so much respect for what they do, how they do it, and on their own terms. And again, like I said, no one sings like John. No one plays guitar like Mark. And Mike Heller is out of this fucking world.
Yeah.
On drums. So it's the greatest combination, completely live, because we get John to talk about his relationship and opinion with laptop rock.
And backing vocals, etc. Yeah.
That's laptop rock.
Right. Sure. Yeah. But yeah, the new album's called All Hell's Breaking Loose. There's a couple videos out for it already. Surf the Tsunami is one of the singles. Go for the Gold is the other single. And John alludes to a tour in October, so we'll hopefully get to see them in person, live across the United States in October, in the fall sometime. So
don't forget Raven was the band that took a couple of bands from the Big Four out on their very first tours. And of course, we're talking about Metallica as the opening band for Raven in '83. And we're talking about Anthrax being their opening band in direct support in 1984.
Yeah.
So
a couple footnotes that are hard to ignore.
If you don't have any respect for Raven, just shame on you. So there you go. Not throwing rocks at anybody, but if you need to kind of think about it for a second. That's all.
Yeah. We're thrilled to have him today, a legend in the new wave of British heavy metal movement, still going now on their 15th studio album called All Hell's Breaking Loose. We've got John Gallagher from Raven on the Talk Louder podcast.
Can you see me?
No.
Not yet.
No.
Yes.
There he is.
Yes. Jazz hands.
Welcome back, John.
Metal hands.
Yeah. I have a question for you.
Oh, fair enough.
Right off the bat.
Where are you? What time is it?
It is 2 p.m. and I'm in Florida.
Oh, Florida.
Okay. All right.
Do you live in Florida?
That's me telling me to get onto your thing immediately or
good.
Kill somebody. There you go. I'm here half the time. The rest of the time I'm in Newcastle.
Okay. That's why I asked, because the last time I had a working brain cell, I thought you were just back over there.
I just can't, and I'm going back again week after next. So it's in and out.
Okay. But this in Florida is a residence?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
This is my crash pad full of junk.
Looks like a rocker's pad to me. Yeah, those are fun.
Adding to the collection. Oh, whammy bar.
Many whammy bars. How about that one?
Oh,
wow.
That's a beauty. For those who are listening and not watching.
I'm all out and doing a lot of writing already, so that's good.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've got a new album. By the time this episode airs, it'll be out. It's coming out June 30th, called All Hell's Breaking Loose. It
Absolutely.
is your 15th studio album, which is incredible. Congratulations. And still sounding
you need to adjust your underwear there, Jason.
I don't know what you're talking about. New record. Yeah, it's breaking loose. All hell's breaking loose.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
15th studio
I love
album.
it so much, and thank you for sharing that with us.
Yes.
I what, 14? 15?
15.
15.
15 studio albums.
Before you start getting into live albums and EPs and all that nonsense, yes.
Right.
That's incredible.
Wow.
What a career. 15. So I wanted to ask you right off the bat about the cover artwork. I love the cover. It's sort of comic book style artwork, a depiction of the band. Who did the artwork?
Some gentleman who calls himself Maggot, funnily enough. I don't know. This is one of Mike's finds. We had a lot of issues with the previous cover with darting between one guy and another guy, and this guy is just very receptive to ideas. Like, try this, okay. Try this, okay. Rather than, no, I'm not going to make this guy look like you because I don't think you look like that. I'm going to make you look like the Hulk or something. It's like, no, my face doesn't freaking look like that, you idiot. So this guy, it would just be like, can you do a better likeness? And it's like, yeah, sure. Boom. And he nailed it. So it's obviously a follow-on from Metal City art-wise, but it's not, I mean, that was deliberately total comic book fronts, with the barcode and all the other stuff. This is more, I don't know, more like movie poster type of deal. But it does follow on, and it's us in the middle of all hell breaking loose, pretty much. So,
yeah. I think I've heard of Maggot.
It's one of those covers where it pops because you see us, but then when you look harder into it, there's all this weird detail, which is fun. You get to look at it.
I love artwork that you stare at and you discover something new every time you look at it.
Exactly. So that's. And in a way, it's kind of a throwback to something like Nothing Exceeds, where it was the same thing. There was like a guy's face, and then when you looked closely, there was all this detail and all this weird stuff around it.
Well, it also
kind of covers they're cool. So
yes,
fun.
it also harkens to your first record.
That's true too. You guys spot the guys, and then you'd be looking forever, going, "What kind of gear they got? What's hidden here?" and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, right. I mean, it. For those of you who suck and don't have Rock Until You Drop, you need to go find a reissue quick because you're not going to find an original, and you need to see the art that I'm talking about. The photograph is a pile of Englishmen. No, wait, a pile of gear.
Talking about the same band
with you guys, like sort of like crash bang wallop in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And this thing is you guys in the middle of it again. And I love that.
And that was the original idea on that. And then of course, let's try this. And some of those outtakes are in the box set we just put out last year, and you see them, and it's fun to see, and it's go, yeah, they picked the right photo.
Yeah. Where was that taken? Not to go backwards to the beginning.
That is, it's off Pilgrim Street in Newcastle. There's a little alley, and there was an art center, and it's a strange building. It was a building that was actually deserted. There was nobody in it, but the basement had these 4 or 5 big lockup rooms, and the art center just rented it out as rehearsal space. So, we had a big sliding door, and that was the room where all our gear was kept. And then we would take it out into the big room and play. And that's where that's where the band was born, as it were. When Rob joined, we'd already been in there a few years, and it was all done right there.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's all totally gone. They flattened the building, they filled in everything underground, and now they're building a 30-story skyscraper on top of it, which is crazy.
Sounds like Austin.
Yeah, it sounds like every metro area.
Yeah.
What was there is not no more. So
right. The cover going all the way back to the first album, since Jason took us back there, and all the way up to the new album, your artwork also sort of hints at the sense of humor that has always been sort of a theme within Raven. How important? You guys don't seem to take yourself too seriously. I mean, obviously you do with the music, but how important is humor to you guys?
Oh, it's very important. I mean, you're right. I mean, we have a lot of fun. We goof off. We do a lot of silly stuff. but we're very serious about what we do at the same time. But I think that's a huge part of what we do, because there's so many bands there who are dour and they're miserable, and they're all, we are metal, and it's just like, yeah, you're metal. We get it. All right. But
Right.
at the end of the day, everyone has to wipe their ass and put their pants on one leg at a time. So, you can be metal when you're up on stage, but what do you mean? I can't have that quarter pounder with cheese. Don't you know who I am? And all that shit, No. No.
Well, Jason sent me a few of the tracks that you forwarded to him, and I love what I'm hearing. "Go for the Gold" is your first single off the new record. You've got a video for it. You've got a video for a few tracks off this album that people can look up on YouTube.
Let's Go for the Gold and this Surf the Tsunami.
Yeah. I wanted to talk specifically about "Go for the Gold." I noticed in that video you're wearing a Blue Oyster Cult t-shirt.
Yes.
He lights up. Look at that. What, just off kind of weird here, what's your favorite Blue Oyster Cult record?
Probably the live album. I'm such a live album guy. That was the first album I heard. There was a kid who we still know, Keith Foster, who lives in Newcastle. When he was in Mark's class at school, and he just said, "You're going to see Blue Oyster Cult tonight." I'm like, "Who? Come on, they're great." Okay. So we went to the City Hall to see Blue Oyster Cult, and they were fantastic. They were awesome. And that was the tour for On Your Feet or On Your Knees.
Nice.
So that and the studio album would probably be Secret Treaties. There's so many cool songs on that.
Yeah. I asked because I saw that in the video, and I just happened to last night be listening to Fire of Unknown Origin. And I have to say, I know that might be the obvious choice for most people, but it is my favorite, and right behind it is Secret Treaty. So didn't want to get off on a Blue Oyster Cult tangent, but I noticed
that's okay. I like it.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
I noticed you were wearing the shirt, and I thought it was cool.
It makes me want to dig in a little bit, and this kind of like sort of fans throughout Raven's influences. Where does that really come from? Where when you write a Raven's, when you think about a handful of, let's say, 5 Raven songs, if I may, I feel like I hear the Sweet, the band, the Sweet, throughout your entire, if Sweet and I don't know, Metallica, just to pick someone that we know, made a created a band, I feel like it would kind of sound like Raven, because it's thrashy, but it's funny and it's fun, and the vocals are crazy, and there's harmonies everywhere, like Queen. Here you go. If old Queen and old Sweet start a thrash band together, I feel like it would sound like Raven.
That's great.
It's a huge part of it. But I mean, when we were kids, the only music you heard was what was on Radio 1 and what was on Top of the Pops. And then, as you know, when we were able to stay up a little later, the Old Grey Whistle Test was on, which was another music show, and it would have bands playing live, and 80% of them would be garbage. But then you'd see stuff like Edgar Winter doing Frankenstein live in the studio, which if you ever look that on YouTube, it's like fantastic. And you'd get to see shots of these bands you'd never heard of, like, who's Foghat? These guys kick ass. This is great. And stuff like that, So when we were watching Top of the Pops, it was glam. It was Mark Bolan. It was Slade. It was Status Quo. It was The Sweet. It was Mud. It was Gary Glitter. It was all that. And that's a large part of why we write songs, because those guys were bombastic, loud guitars, but they had songs and they had hooks. And that's always been part of what we do,
Yeah.
And then when we got, the first concert we ever saw was Slade in 1973, and the opening band was the sensational Alex Harvey Band.
Oh my God! I was just going to ask
you. We were ruined from the get-go because Alex comes out. This is a bunch of teeny bopper kids like us. Slade had just had a single go in at number 1, Squeeze Me, Please Me. So it was a huge deal. We get there, and this band comes out. Who are these guys? And of course, typical, audience with an opening band, whatever, get out the way. No. This guy, it was a masterclass in being a front man. The band were incredible. And by the end of that show, he had everyone in the palm of his hand. And that really went in the bank, It was just like, wow, this is how it's done.
Yeah.
And of course, following that, you'd see a lot of opening bands who would fail miserably. And it's just like, they didn't have the stagecraft. They didn't have the wherewithal to connect with the audience. And in many cases, they just didn't have the talent or the songs. Yeah. And sometimes you'd see bands who did have the talent and the songs, but they just didn't connect.
Yeah.
And Alex was, no one would accuse him of being a great singer, but it didn't matter. He was incredible.
Yeah.
I say that
Everyone in that band was phenomenal.
Who was the bass player in the band?
Chris Glenn.
There you go. He played with Michael Schenker later on.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we ran into them about 6 years ago at a festival in Europe. And I just went, "Hi, Mr. Glenn. Just want to say you ruined my life. Thank you very much." And he goes, "Are you a Geordie?" Which is what they call people from Newcastle, Geordies. I goes, "Yes, I am." He goes, "Sit down here, Bonnie lad. Let's have a chat." And he told me so many cool things and introduced me to everyone in the Michael Schenker band. So that was really cool. That was good.
Wow. What year was that? When was that?
That was like 2017.
Oh, that's not that long ago.
No. Yeah, we played, it was either Graspop or Alcatraz in Belgium, one of those festivals. Yeah.
I think I saw somewhere, it might have been your website, where you're quoted as saying when you write a song, Raven material, you look for that perfect combination of chaos and structure. How do you know when you have the perfect balance?
Good question.
When it sounds right,
Answer.
When it doesn't sound right, it's too noisy, or if it's too pat, it sounds too commercial. We've obviously fell foul of that, at least on one album, where a number of songs were just delivered too much like that. And if you turned around and said, change this, you might have ended up with a different animal, You never know. But it's chaos and order, hooks and craziness, and these opposites that are just, you get the right jigsaw pieces and put it in, and we're getting started. We're getting more adept at this the more we go on, especially like going over like the last 4 albums. It was like, okay, here's a starting point. We've walked through fire. Let's do better on the next one, which we did. And doing Extermination, we really changed up what we were doing as far as like, let's write a song, but then let's tear it apart and really be super critical and go, why this? Why that?
Yeah.
I mean, I was guilty of doing certain things, like you would play a riff and then you would have like a hang, like da 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 da. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, why are you doing that? Cut that out and get to the point.
Yeah.
Do you write? I'm sorry, Dave. Do you always or because there's not one way to write a song, and I talk about this a lot with people. Do you and Mark write together as one way? Do you guys write at home, which is 2 more ways? And then do you sometimes even start with something fresh that hey, I was just driving to the rehearsal hall and I came up with this jam, and Mike's right there and he can put
all of the above.
That's what I thought.
We've still got some cool ideas from a writing session we did. 2019. We spent like a week at Mike's after touring Japan and China. We came back, and the three of us, it was just like, come up with a riff, and everyone would chip in, and it was like, this is cool. And so we've had on this album this stuff where Mike could be like, I can't play this, but it goes like this. Da 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 da. I'm like, yeah, okay, let's take that, let's go from there. So
Because
we've all.
that sounds like Raven to me.
Mark wrote "Destroy All Monsters" on the phone when he was in the bathroom on a plane. So it's just getting the idea out, and then everyone puts their 10 cents in and pushes it to be better than what it started to be.
How when did Mike Heller, how did you first hear about Mike Heller? When was your introduction to him? And how many records have you made with Mike now?
We've made three.
Two, three.
We had the live album, we got Metal City, and All Hell's Breaking Loose.
Right. Okay.
When Joe Hasselwander, our previous drummer who'd been with us forever, had health problems. He had a heart attack, and we were stuck with it was 4 dates in the US and then a 12-date European tour. 2 days beforehand, boom, Joe has a major heart attack. We're like, oh shit. So we reached out, and we got this one guy called Jimmy Mess who filled in for us in Chicago. Luckily, we'd already booked rehearsal time because we hadn't played in a few months. So we did that. And then the next 3, we got this guy called Mike Heller who'd been playing with Fear Factory. Turned out we'd seen each other. We'd played on the 70,000 Tons cruise.
Oh. And
we saw this guy playing drums, and what's he doing with a laptop? And we were like making fun of the laptop thing going on.
Of course.
There's a huge stories to tell from that. But anyway, and then he'd seen us. And so there was all this stuff going on. But anyway, so we get this guy to come down, and we're playing in Jersey, and he comes down with his drums, and we sit and talk for half an hour, and we go and play the set, and it's like unbelievable. He just plotted it out and just played it. And Mark's like, why did you play that there? He goes, well, that's what's on the record. He goes, don't do it like that. Go do your own thing and play faster. And Mike's like it's Christmas. Really?
Yeah.
Boom. And it's like, no, do your thing. And because we saw from that first gig at the end, he was like, what are they doing? We just started jamming, and we just started throwing the ball around, and he was throwing it back, and it's like, there's chemistry here, definitely.
Yeah.
So we went and did had the European thing coming up, which he couldn't do. And it was just a case of like, we're doing this. We got another guy in who did a great job for us, Dave Chadwick, who's playing with Manowar now. But, and we just said to Mike, let's talk when we get back. Do you want in? Yeah. Boom. And it went from there. And that was June of 2017. And by the end of that year, we did 150 gigs.
Oh, wow.
In 6 months. We just boom, 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 hammered it.
Wow.
So he's roadworthy as well.
Absolutely. We had a 50-day tour with Voodoo in Europe, and they were playing a day and then taking a day off, and then playing a day and then taking 2 days off. Like, nah. So we filled in all the days in between. So that was a 70-day tour.
Wow.
It's crazy.
How many in a row were you guys doing?
15.
15 in a row?
15 on, 1 off.
Many times. We did 43 dates on that last tour last year.
Yeah.
We had 3 days off, and 2 of them were travel days.
Jeez. Wow.
So it's
hardcore.
Once you get in that groove, you don't want it to stop. You just keep getting better.
Yeah.
We go out and we play the first day of a tour, and it's good. And then the second date's so much better. And then the third date, boom, you're at this level where it's never going to go below that, and occasionally it'll go off the charts, but you got to have that,
Yeah.
How about your vocal stamina? Because in my experience, I mean, I've done about 29 in a row before, but gig number 7 or 8, there's times in the day I can barely talk, and I have to really take care of myself.
Certain things you got to do. I mean, first off, I've basically never drank. I've never smoked. I never do any of the stupid stuff. So if you take that out of the equation, that's a huge help.
Yep.
And then you got to sleep, because if you're tired, the first thing that goes is your voice.
Yeah.
So those guys can clown around and watch YouTube videos all freaking night, but I got to sleep. I got to get me sleeping. I get that. And the other thing you find out longer you go on is talking. Like let's do an interview before the gig. Worst thing possible you could do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, it's just like, no, I got to chill out. Yeah.
I never, as a journalist, I never understood that. Of course, I totally understand it now. But when I was young and first starting out, and I was reaching out to bands trying to get interviews, and I was told, that the singer couldn't do an interview because they're saving their voice or whatever, I used to think to myself, what? All we're doing is talking. It's not like they're singing, But now I totally get it. But
when you sing, if you're singing properly, you're singing from your diaphragm. You're belting it out. You're and shit like that. You're really banging it out. But when you're talking, it's all from here.
Yeah.
And again, if you're tired and you're just rasping and it just wears it out,
Right. I totally understand it now, and I certainly appreciate it. But I at a younger age, before I knew better, I never understood that. But
when you were a kid, you're looking again. Yeah, that just. I'm the rock star. I'm posh. I'm not allowed to talk before.
I don't think we've ever had the word posh said on this podcast before. I love it. I love it.
Probably not.
But our name is Nigel, and we play posh metal.
But I was going to say about, after gig 7, gig 8, I'm really, guys, I don't know what's going to happen tonight. You'll be fine. And you get up there and a few songs in, something clicks. And certainly there's places in my range that I have to sort of skip over. You know what I mean? There'll be a bridge missing in my range. Here's my low, here's my high, somewhere in the middle, it'll be a little shot. But I'm telling you, by gig 10, 11, fine, all the way through, you become bulletproof. I think you find where you are. And you
it's like any other kind of exercise. It's a muscle, and you work it and you get stronger, So for me, it's always, slightly problematic. Gig 1 is usually great. Gig 2, then you're dealing with the aftermath. It's like, okay, we got to work our way through this a little bit.
Yeah.
And, you just take it on a day-by-day basis. And like you say, you could be going through the day going, oh, this is not going to be fun. And you do the sound check, and it's great. It's just like, we're fine.
Yeah.
We're all good.
Yeah.
We're all good.
Well, you're just a big influence on me. And so I consider your style to be like, how many voices can I sing with? Because you've got this gnarly, cartoony, and then you've got this sort of buzzsaw thing, and then you've got this shrill, thing that comes from, like I said, the sweet, or for in layman's terms, King Diamond or Rob Halford or whatever. But you've got
there's a big difference there.
Yeah,
King Diamonds, it's almost falsetto.
Yeah,
but, like Ian Gillan, or David Byron, or those kind of guys, Rob Halford.
Yeah,
it's full voice.
Yes,
and
a lot of those guys have more than 1 or 2 or even 3 voices. They're they're changing the tone and the style of singing and how much air they're using, etc.
Yeah, but didn't you love that as a kid? Like I loved,
Yes.
you know, when Sad Wings of Destiny came out, I was the kid at school going, you got to hear this, you got to hear this, you got to hear this. And within that album, you had like about 4 voices.
Yeah.
What's he going to do on the next one? Next one, it's like a different guy. It's like, huh? And then the next one, huh?
Yeah.
It was all him. And it was, you know, a huge influence. Fantastic. Just control. And, you know, you'd see them live and he would just go for stuff. And it was always so cool, you know?
Yeah. Speaking of singing, you're one of the rare guys that uses the headset mic versus a mic stand. How did that come about? Obviously, you're very active on stage, so that's the obvious answer. But did you, what was it that sold you on the headset other than just the mobility?
Many things. I mean, the first time I saw a headset was a video of Kate Bush from a tour in '79. She had the first one.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Like, how am I going to dance and sing? And what, like a road crew, I'll make you a microphone that'll go on your head. And it's like revelation. It was like, wow, how cool would that be? But I'm stuck with a freaking stand. And when people go crazy and do it, the microphone hits me in the teeth, or I get electric shocks, or all this stuff. It was like, and then, you know, it's like you kind of stiffen up, and it's the worst thing you can do for singing. It's like swimming. You can't swim stiff. You have to flow. So when I'm able to do that with a headset, it's like a regular singer can move around, and I can go, oh, it doesn't sound so good here, but it sounds a little better over there. I can do that. And of course, performance-wise, I can engage with the audience so much better than just standing still. So, you know, so when I saw Sammy Hagar doing this in '82, it's like, wow. And then we went to America, and that was the first thing I wanted was, what about the headset? What about the headset? And we didn't get it until it would have been '84. I checked stuff out, and nobody, you know, it just wasn't there. But we had a really cool sound man, and we went into 48th Street, and we got an 80, and we got a Shure mic. And then we went through holy hell through that whole tour in '84, because for the first 5 or 6 dates, it would cut out 30 minutes into the set. We're taking all the stuff onto the bus at night, and he's like spraying it with, you know, plastic to try and stop it from shorting out. And my roadie went, yeah, it's always funny when I change the battery and I have to pour all that sweat out of it. And we all looked at him and went, what? So we had my famous colostomy bag at that point, which was the pack in a huge, you know, plastic bag on my back. Now I've got a jacket and I've got it in there, so it's out the way of all that. But it was a process.
Yeah. I was going to ask if that was a commercially available product, or if it was something that you had to. Obviously, it is now, but back then, the only person I ever
it was the microphone had like a regular XLR microphone cable, and you had to take the plug off and put the small one on that fit the wireless system. And you know, we had to go through all that crap and make sure it was, you know, powering, because it draws power off the battery to run the microphone properly. But we figured it out, and you know, it was like, I'm not going back. You know, and occasionally, on the few times it's died, I've had to, and you just deal with it. You know.
Yeah.
I've always wondered about, because when you're a singer and you're sort of the voice and the connection to the audience, if there is something you want to say to your band that you don't want the audience to hear.
I like where this is going.
It's difficult. I move the microphone away and go, I'm whispering, and it still comes through the mic. Or sometimes the sound man will be like, he won't mute it. So we're backstage, and you'll hear this huge laugh come over the piano. Oops, that was me. And then it can be very handy. It's like the tape intro is not working. Oh, shit. Ladies and gentlemen, will you welcome from Newcastle, England, Raven? Which I did steal from King Diamond because I'd seen him do that years and years ago. That was hilarious.
Announce his own band.
Ladies and gentlemen, will you welcome Merciful Fate? And he'd turn around and go,
Yeah. I love it.
I love it. I love it. I wanted to ask also about, let's go back to the new album for a minute, All Hell's Breaking Loose. Mike Heller, this is his third album, second studio album with you. And I think I read that you recorded this album at his studio.
yeah.
Was that a first, or did you record Metal City at his studio as well? Because he was in the band at that time.
He'd done the drums at his studio on that one, which was we had all this backwards and forwards because he did the drums. We did the recording at a studio with a guy and it didn't work out and it was all kinds of hassle and we had to cancel that. And then we ended up by chance with Michael Wagner, who'd invited us down to his studio. So we did everything with Michael and it was great. And then the mix wasn't so great. Then we had 2 or 3 guys to do that. This time around, it was all, Mike was in at the get-go because we'd written the songs for Metal City before Mike came in. He put his 10 cents in, but this was from the get-go, everyone putting ideas into the pot, coming up with the songs, choosing the songs. And then Mike did his drums and me and Mark came over to LA and with all 3 of us, Mike engineered it. We put everything else together. And then we have this guy, Lassie Lammert in Germany, who's a phenomenal mix engineer. And he did the mix. Boom. Great.
Yeah.
Just having that, and that's an experience we've never had, just being the 3 of us completely.
Yeah.
Without even an outside engineer, just the 3 of us and working very hard and getting it done.
That's kind of what I was getting at. Is this was sort of a unique and first time experience for you guys. Is it a process that you would duplicate or would you change anything? What did you learn from doing it this way?
Oh, this was perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
This is the way we'd like to do all of them. This was absolutely perfect. And I mean, we'd had a taste of that when I mentioned that writing session where we were all in there and just record some odds and ends of what we were doing. And it's just absolutely perfect. I mean, we stopped using outside producers literally after the Pack is Back. It was like, we know what we want.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you don't have that vision, an outside guy like that who's working, in the right manner can certainly make a huge difference. But, when we were doing the Mad EP and Life's a Bitch was like, no, we know exactly what we want. And it's been pretty much like that ever since. And we've just, polished and honed in and worked harder on just getting what we want.
Yeah.
So we don't need to filter that through anybody else.
The new record sounds amazing and like Raven. And if Mike had a lot to do with that, I think that you guys are kind of here on out. I would hope that Mike would be with you till the world ends, because he has really kind of like brought new life, in my opinion. It's just me, little me, to the band. And I was already a huge fan of Mike's because I've known Mike a long time.
Yeah.
He has really kicked Raven in the butt, so to speak.
He took it to a new level,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we were doing good. We were making some good records. Extermination's a good record.
Yeah,
but we jumped.
Yes.
I'll echo what Jason just said, because the first thing that struck me when I listened to the new tracks is like, oh my God, who's playing drums on this? Because it was, it's phenomenal.
He's got a text from Dave going, who the fuck is this drummer?
I was like, seriously, I was like, Jesus Christ.
Oh, you mean Mike Heller?
Yeah,
Mike Heller.
And then he tells me he was in Fear Factory, and I was like, oh my God, man, this guy, yeah, he's really, really good. I mean, the songs and everything is great. Don't get me wrong, but the drums really stood out to me.
When you saw Mike on 70 Tons, and he had the laptop, was he playing with Fear Factory?
He was playing with the tracks from the records.
With what band?
No, let's not get into any of that.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was just curious as to who he was on board with.
He was on board with Fear Factory.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I would have guessed that too.
Different kind of music entirely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and they got all the little introduction parts and God knows what else is going on. And we just thought that was pretty funny. But he'd heard of us, but had never heard any music of us.
You're
and
kidding.
He went to see us on that, and it blew his mind.
Wow. I didn't know that he was like...
No, he'd never heard one song by us. And you go to his place, and he's got like what you've got behind you times about like 1,000.
Yeah.
He has every album by everyone that ever existed on the planet. But he never had ours.
But no Raven.
But no Raven. And he was like, oh, this will be funny. This is the band that Metallica opened up for. I never heard them. Oh, let's check it out. And he said, I was like, what the fuck? Wow.
Yeah.
So that was cool. So he's, bit by bit playing catch up with all that,
Well, and he's a younger man.
He's a younger guy with different influences.
That's right.
And, occasionally, of course, it's like each of us look at each other and go, what the fuck are you listening to? It's like, what, you don't like status quo? And then he's listening to death metal and all this. But, there is that overlap. And there is bringing in ideas from where the hell did that come from? And, like the Thing famously putting blast beats in on a melodic hard rock song, basically. So, why not? If it works, it works. And, we're just treating those things a little different. It's just a technique. If everyone's going, blah, 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 it kind of gets annoying. But if the band's playing like rang, 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 big chords, and that's going on, one complements the other,
Right.
Yeah. Breathing room.
Yeah. The quip that I can think of is there are no rules. And if it sounds like what it is, if it sounds like what the voices in your head are having you create, by all means, it's a match made. So.
I mean, the thing we've always done is that, I don't just plunk along under the guitar riff,
No.
Bum, 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 bum. No, I'll play a riff, and quite often it won't be the same. It'll complement what's going on,
Yeah.
So, and Mike's doing the same thing. He's accenting the riff. And it's really peculiar on some of these new songs. You'll really hear it, like Turn of the Screw. It's everyone's pushing on this one thing. It's like, wow. And that's orchestration. There's only 3 of us. So when you orchestrate, it makes it sound bigger than what it is. And that's, that's another big aim. You want to make it to sound bigger than just 3 guys playing.
You guys are pulling that off. The new record, All Hell's Breaking Loose. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Again, thank you for sharing the audio with us. The album cover is totally right in there with classic Raven style. You're singing your ass off on here. Everybody is top notch. Totally on top of it.
We're happy with it. And so far, that's the reaction we've been getting, which is great. I mean, we did a bunch of interviews, and you know how it is with interviews. It's like, oh, you've got this new record, and can you tell me? And it's like, you got this new album, and it's blowing my head off, and it's and it's like, I don't have to sell nothing. It's like,
no.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah.
That's what you want,
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's what's happening over here too.
Exactly. You mentioned the Metallica tour, and of course, everybody that listens to this show is aware of the fact that Metallica was your opening band on the All for One tour back in the early '80s. But I don't think as many people are aware. And correct me if I'm wrong. You did the same for Anthrax. Is that right?
That's right.
You took them out on their first major tour. What do you remember about that? Because we've talked about the Metallica tour. Tell us a little bit about taking Anthrax out as your opening act.
It was pretty funny. They're great guys.
Sense of humor, much like
sense of humor. They've never changed. Charlie was the shy little kid back then, so he's a man. He's turned into a man. And Frankie's never changed, and Scott's never changed. They're the same guys, which is cool. Of course, they had Neil as the singer, and all they did is fight. A good reason, but all they did is fight. I famously remember Neil coming up going, "John, now I know you got a cold. And I seen you go out there, but you still make it work. How's that?" I goes, "Well, if you've really got some problems there, like we were saying before, maybe you don't go for the high A, you'll take it down a hair, and it's live. You deal your cards with what you've got and make it work." Good. And then he went out because he's had a sore throat, so he goes out. And the first song, I believe, was Death Rider, and it has this ridiculous scream, and he goes straight for the ridiculous scream, and that's him done for the night. He turns into a frog after that, so that was kind of fun.
So they're touring Fistful of Metal, obviously, and are you on the All for One tour at this time?
We were actually touring what ended up being the Live at the Inferno. I was live for the live album.
Okay.
We knew we were getting off Neat Records. We knew they were going to put out a best of, and it was just like, let's record some shows and beat them to the punch.
Did you? This is a strange question, but on that tour, and given the story you just told, were you aware of any rumblings behind the scenes that this would be Neil's last album with Anthrax?
Oh, I couldn't see it going on very long. There was just friction, Neil's a good singer. It was just personalities that was pushing it. And obviously, the other guys were definitely very driven, and they were very happy to be on the tour with us. And because they'd been pushing hard, trying to get Johnny Z to get interest, and for quite a while. And this was like a big deal for them going out as, first tour. That blew anyone's head off, definitely. And they were doing well, and they knew they could do better. They could move further up, So it all worked. Actually, Mark picked up Joey Belladonna to go to the first rehearsal we've had. When we were upstate New York,
At the time, weren't you and Mark living?
Yeah, we were living in upstate New York.
Yeah, you and Rob too.
And they were. I guess they were recording, and they were looking for a singer, and they were up in Ithaca. And Mark went to the airport and picked up Joey as a favor for them and brought him over.
Oh. Wow,
that's cool.
Never knew that. There's your trivia for you folks today.
Wow.
Speaking of Mark, you guys had to go on hiatus in the early 2000s because his legs were crushed in some sort of freak accident, a wall collapse.
Freak gardening accident, yeah.
Exactly. A wall collapsed on him or something? What exactly happened?
It's a long, twisted story. It started with our father dying in late August, and 2001. We go over for the funeral and hang out. I fly back on September 10th. He flies back on September 11th and ends up stuck in Canada for about 3 weeks. Comes back. He's driving early morning. Some guy T-boats him at a junction because the guy was driving with no lights. Mark smashes his head off the glass, gets this huge lump on his head. He has to go some guy owed him money. He went to pick up money from a guy who was working construction, building a drugstore. Gets there. He's supposed to wear a hard hat on the site. He couldn't wear the hat. He just had his baseball cap on because of the egg.
Mm.
And it's windy. And he walks there and the wind blows his hat off. And he goes to pick his hat up and the wind blows the hat again. And he goes to get his hat and the wind blows the hat again. And he goes to get his hat and then the entire building falls down.
Oh, wow. Oh.
So if he hadn't have had the accident with the egg on his head, he would have died.
Yeah, because he was chasing the hat.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he called me up, laughing uncontrollably. I'm like, what the hell's wrong with you? He goes, buildings just fell on top of us. I'm like, oh, yeah, right. Like, And, he was doolally with stress and adrenaline and whatever, shock. And they had to helicopter him out and didn't think he was going to make the night. Wow. And then it was like, we're going to have to cut your legs off. And he told them to go F themselves. And he said, well, we're going to have to cut your right leg off. Nope, you're not going to do that. So it goes on, well, you'll never walk again. Yeah, we'll see about that.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Amazing.
That is amazing. How much physical therapy did it take? How many months, years? What was the rehabilitation process?
Yeah, how does that?
So it's still ongoing, really. But I think we played like 4 shows with him in a wheelchair in like 2004. And it was weird, of course. He played great, but it was weird. I mean, we played this one show in Virginia where I think we were playing Lambs to the Slaughter, and he paused, leaned over, threw up all over the floor, wiped his mouth, and then went back to the riff. And it was like, what? Because he'd had an operation a few weeks earlier, and it was the anesthesia was still in his system, which was really weird.
Wow.
And then 2005, we played a festival in Tampa. He had a full leg brace from like hip all the way down. And he was able to stand up and do that. And then we started doing a couple of European festivals with a much smaller leg brace. And then he was just strapping it. And then, boom. And then,
That's incredible that he's
superhero, man.
By the time we played Japan in 2009, and I saw him run across the stage and do the Pete Townsend knee slide, I was like, I nearly cried. I was like,
I bet.
I never thought I'd see that again, So
wow,
crazy.
That's amazing. So Mark obviously is your brother. So and rock and roll has a history of brothers in bands, and typically those brothers are feuding all the time. The Davies brothers and the Kinks, and the Robinson brothers and the Black Crows, and the list goes on. But my question is
even the Gallagher brothers. Yeah.
Okay, there's where I'm going. So, do you guys? Do you get tired of being with each other as siblings, working in a band and traveling together? And is there ever any friction? Like, we don't hear about it as much as some of these other bands. But
we're different people, but we have a common goal, and I think we stopped all that stuff once we started the band, and any frustration or anger was taken out by beating up guitars rather than people.
Yeah.
So
that's great, because usually it happens the other way around. The frustrations come out once the band is up and running, and then it's detrimental to the band. So you kind of got
some of those stories are just hilarious. The Kinks stories are fantastic.
And the Gallagher are the Gallaghers, right? The Oasis brothers.
Yeah. Those two. Oh God.
I like reading the interviews just for the barbs they throw at each other.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are very entertaining. They're more entertaining doing that than the music is. That's for them.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to ask, is bass your first instrument?
I started with guitar because we only had a classical guitar. 1972, 73, we went on holiday to Spain. And that was the first band we ever saw, was in the hotel. After dinner, there was a band playing. And the guy was playing a Strat and he had the coil cord and the wah-wah and was playing with his teeth and doing the whole Hendrix trip. And we were like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
So Mark got a classical guitar, and I was tuning it down and learning bass lines. And then it was like, we're going to form a band. You can play bass. I'm like, great. And, Christmas of 74, we bothered our parents. They bought us a couple of cheap electrics, and we were off and running from then on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do play guitar. I write on guitar. I play guitar almost every day, which helps because, there's a lot of players who will only play bass and they don't understand, or the other way around, guitarists don't understand bass. You've kind of got to, sit in the other guy's shoes for 5 minutes to see how it all fits together.
Yeah. Yeah. Growing up as a young bass player, who are maybe your top 3 inspirations?
Oh, geez, top 300. There's too many. Gary Thane from Uriah Heep. John Wetton, King Crimson, Uriah Heep. Jimmy Lee from Slade.
Wow. Okay.
People like that. Entwistle, Geddy Lee, Jack Bruce. It went on and on and on. There were so many cool players. Trevor Boulder, who played. I mean, King Crimson, Uriah Heep have always had the greatest bass players, and Jethro Tull always had the greatest bass players. So, Chris Squire, huge influence too. So, all those guys, I loved them.
And you're
Lane with the Faces, another fantastic player. All those guys.
And you're a fingers guy rather than a pick, right? So.
I could never get on with a pick. Like I fakey pick my guitar, Like I have one, but I don't.
So how did that preference come about?
I was just more comfortable with that, and I guess it wasn't even a case of like the players I loved were finger players, because I loved Alan Lancaster from Status Quo, Chris Squire. McCartney was a pick guy too. All those guys were pick, and at the end of the day, it's the notes, not so much how you got to get to the notes. All those other things are peripheral. What instruments they're using, and whether they had the bass on the floor or under their chin. It was what are they actually doing? What are they creating? And people like Entwistle would do both. He'd play fingers, then he'd play pick. And Geezer would play fingers and play pick.
Mm-hmm.
There was always a challenge to, can I play as tight as a pick player using my fingers? And I figured out a couple of ways where most of the time I can. Mm-hmm. So that was always a fun thing to come up with,
I feel like fingers... there's a little bit of a pocket it creates, because it's kind of like the attack of playing with fingers is sort of after the touch, right? And with a pick, it's attack first, because there's
a different sound too. I think it's slightly more rounder. There's more mid, and the mids is where it's happening.
Correct.
So with it, there's an initial sharp attack on a pick and a click with it and a thud. The fingers. So that's more of a scoop thing. The fingers is almost the other way around. You're getting more poke. And, on a lot of instruments, guitar and bass, a lot of people do this thing where they pull the mids out, and it's just like you're just killing the music. The mids, especially on a bass guitar, that's where the notes are. Yeah. It always kills me. I've done sessions where people have sent me the mix, and I'm like, you sent this to the wrong guy. That Jason Newstead lives down the road over here. Like, what do you mean? He goes, the bass isn't there. Yes, it is. No, what you're hearing is, no, I want to hear the notes.
Yeah.
Oh, that doesn't fit with this session. I go, that's fair enough. That's your call. Personally, I want to hear what the guy's playing. Because if he's playing something musical, it adds to the music. It's not just, turn the bottom end up on the guitar, because then you might as well just turn the bottom end up on the guitar. What's the point?
Yeah. Yeah. How many? You're a collector. I don't know if that's the right word, but to me, I've always been struck by the variety of basses that you play. You seem to have quite an assortment of different body styles and that sort of thing. How many basses do you own?
Oh, that's tough. What have I got here?
Jason,
I got about 5 back in the UK. So what have we got here? We got this. Fretless. I've got 2 Explorers, like my old girl here.
Yeah, the beauty.
Yeah.
Which still needs the fingerboard repairing slightly. And the copy of it, which I made, the clone,
Yeah.
The young'un has been doing good.
Nice.
And a couple I had before. I've got a couple of Flying V's here that I made. This one's pretty wild. I've got recently. There you go.
Wow.
How about that for a hot one?
That's nice.
I like it.
And I've got, 3 8-strings. I've got a couple of 6-string basses, which I've been fooling with recently. And it's just, every instrument has different songs in them.
Yeah.
Different guitars. Like, ooh, and you come up with something new. So that's cool.
Just a minute ago, you said you made a couple. Do you make these yourself, or do you have them made?
Yeah, I do actually. I'm in the middle of doing this. Let me grab it for you. Hang on a minute.
Yeah, him and Mark both make their own guitars.
They make their own guitars?
Yeah, and Mark, I got to play a couple of Mark's the last time they were in Austin. Whoa! Yeah.
SG.
Now that front wall will disappear, and I've got 2 real hot pickups going onto that. So
wow.
that had the headstock busted off so bad, and I got it for cheap.
Yeah.
It's a project. Let me see if I can fix this. And so far, it's going great.
Great.
Wow.
Yeah, I made the V's. Like this guy's from a kit, which I love. This has been on the last 3 albums. Played almost everything.
Yeah, you play that a lot.
It's a great bass.
So are those that rear pickup, that bridge pickup? Is that a guitar pickup or is that a bass pickup?
It's a variation on the guitar pickup. It's an X2NB.
Okay.
But on these guys, that is a guitar pickup. It's a 7-string guitar pickup. It's the same. It's an X2N.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's a cool one. They're great.
Cool. 7-string humbucker on a 4-string bass with
a little wider. You put a regular humbucker on most of these, and it barely matches.
Yeah, you're gonna lose.
Here's the one with I must be compensating for something here, I guess. The world's longest whammy bar. There you go.
Hey, whatever you need, man.
Yeah.
That's right. Whatever does the job. But it's fun. I like to have outrageous looking instruments that do the job for me.
Yeah, that's why I asked, because you definitely.
I get like a nice Fender Precision. It's just like, nah, come on. It's not pointy enough. It needs to be a better color. So some anonymous black. I mean, this is the most anonymous instrument I have. This is black fretless.
Mm-hmm.
That's
just because
nice.
I wanted a fretless to fool with, and
that's a nice bass, man.
Yeah, but if it was me, it would be yellow or purple or some nonsense. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
this is going to be tarted up too. This needs a new pickup in the back, and
nice.
Maybe we'll get the color in it. Who knows?
Well, I was going to say it kind of has to fit the personality of you and your band, and
yeah, I mean. I thought it would be fun for Mark to play a couple of these, so I've made him 3. He's 2 of them, but he loves the black one, and it's hilarious because these are just made with plywood.
Yeah,
and the guitar sounds phenomenal. we couldn't believe. He's like, because you hear the sustain on this thing, like acoustically, and you ding.
Yeah, without
What?
it plugged in. Yeah.
Spinal Tap. So, what the hell,
Do you guys have a shop that you do this in, or you just crank up the saw in the kitchen?
In here, it's the saw in the kitchen.
Saw in the kitchen. Sounds like some lyrics about to happen.
I've got a bench there. It's too bloody hot to do it outside, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about the time that you spent on Atlantic Records. You did have a period of your career where you're on a major label, and a lot of bands, that's the ultimate. You get to a major label, but there's also the side of it where you make concessions because now you've got to please other people, etc. What do you remember about your time on Atlantic Records?
Good question.
I remember when the army finally saved us and released us from our bonds. Yeah, it's like
I think everybody has that story.
Yeah, I mean that was it was a learning experience, and as you know, experience is what you get when you don't get what you wanted in the first place. It was a huge deal. We went over in '84 for that tour, specifically tour to get a major agent deal, which was a huge thing there, and to get a major label deal, which we did after the Roseland show. We had Atlantic wanted to sign us, and it was like, Atlantic, that's AC/DC, that's Led Zeppelin, that's this, that, and it was none of that. And it was all the record company you would see in Spinal Tap. It was all that instead. People working there who should have been working selling baked beans or, French fries or God knows what. And
I call that the blind leading the sighted.
Yeah, it very much is. It's usually with these things, you maybe have, if you're lucky, one or two visionary types. Mm-hmm. Like obviously when Atlantic was started, someone like Ahmet Ertegun and Jerry Wexler were visionaries.
Yeah,
by that point they had nothing to do with running the company. They were just picking up a paycheck, and
sure,
they'd earned that time away from that.
Yeah.
We had people like Doug Morris, who was more interested in chasing Mariah Carey. The A&R guy at the time didn't sign us. The disco guy signed us because the rock A&R guy was in rehab.
Wow.
And all he was ever interested in was Twisted Sister anyway. So it was annoying. And then, of course, we did... people give us grief over Stay Hard and the Packers Back, but Stay Hard was all on us. And to me, it's a complete follow-on from All for One. It's fine. Yeah, there's like maybe one song that's a little cheesy, which is Restless Child. And the reasoning for that was we'd written an album to get off Neat Records, and it was like, we're not going to give them all good songs. And then, you've got to deal with Atlantic. Scrap these, bring in the A-Leaguers. And, there was one or two scraps left, as it were. And, of course, the record company like, we like that song Hard Ride. Can you redo that for us? Which was pointless. A waste of time. But, yeah, fine, we'll do that. And then we came to the next album. Obviously, they had in their heads, these guys are great. Let's change everything. Let's make them Kiss meets Bon Jovi, It's like, and so there was that pressure, and also self-sabotage to say, we're going to do a high-tech heavy metal album. Let's get the guy in that's best known for recording bands and making them sound live. So we get Eddie Kramer.
Yeah.
That wasn't his forte. Doing that kind of album wasn't our forte. We showed that we had a lot of craft and we were able to do it wonderfully. And it had nothing to do with us, at the end of the day. So, and then it was like, okay, here's the record you wanted. And I said, well, we're not giving you money for a video. Which in hindsight may have been the greatest thing that could have ever happened to us. Who the hell knows? And we just sat and went, you know what? I don't want to play this anymore. let's do an EP so we can go out and tour. We had the opportunity to tour with Twisted Sister. Unfortunately, it was on the back of Come Out and Play, and they cancelled their tour about a week before it started. So we ended up just going out doing our thing. And back then too, we were on Premier Talent, which was like the best agency, but not for us, because there weren't any heavy bands other than Judas Priest, who we did do 6 dates with, and Journey. I mean, it was, rarefied air, put it that way. And all the metal bands were on another agent. Oh God, what were they called? Was it MCI?
Yeah, that's one of them.
Yeah, I believe it was them. And, they were upset that we hadn't signed with them in the first place. So we kind of had to go cap in hand to Premier and said, this isn't working. We need to quit. And we went with the other guys. And we really only did one tour, which was the Wasp and Slayer tour in '87 with them. And then, it all changed from then anyway.
So for people that are listening that may not understand, myself included actually, and Jason can probably weigh in on this too, because he's got experience with this. How much pushback do you have when you're on a major label, and how much of it is you're just doing what they tell you?
Well, I mean, a lot of people have the wrong idea, which like, thinking the record company's booking your tours, or, well, they're not doing that. That's all through an agent. Basically, with that level, the major label thing, and it's changed, and it's changed for the worse. It's worse now than it was then. But they're all about, obviously, getting radio play. So, they have the connections, they will do this. And if they want to put the money in, they will get it. They will get, they will get radio play. And, there's a limit to that. So you'll have, if there's a band that happens to have parents that's got incredibly deep pockets, maybe they would have put the money up for payola to have it played on the radio. I think it's rare that anything gets to be really big and huge on its own merit.
Yeah.
So there's the music and there's the business, and there's very little overlap.
Yeah.
There really is.
Yeah. I feel like it's deals made on the golf course, or if someone is doing someone else a favor,
all the way,
and you're sitting on the bench going, I wonder what those guys are talking about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're talking about your career.
It's all one favor. And all these guys back then, they were all on drugs, and they had hookahs coming inside the doors. They were living the rock and roll lifestyle far more than the bands were.
Right.
And which is why, they were making such crappy decisions half the time. And it's amazing now because, I mean, we used to go into Rockefeller Plaza in New York City to meet with Atlantic. And it was 10, 15 floors of Warner Electra Atlantic.
Wow.
What is it now? Like a broom closet?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah, the reason I asked the question is because I feel like I've heard this 100 times or more. It's a case of careful what you wish for, because everybody thinks the dream is to get signed to the major label, and now here we go. But really what you're doing at that point is you're open up to everybody else's opinions and everybody else's business decisions, and they're making you do things you don't necessarily want to do. But you're contractually obligated, blah, blah, blah. And then you, like you said, when I started this, you're waiting for the army to come bust you out of the prison camp, basically.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, you drive in these races and you're doing so well, and you get to a certain point where you hand your keys over to some crack crazed freaking idiot. It's like, I'm driving from now on. Oh dear.
Yeah.
So it's, it very much was a learning experience. And I probably wouldn't change a thing, because without that, we wouldn't be where we are now.
Yeah.
believe it or not.
You said it yourself earlier.
We went through years and years of hassle and hard work, real hard work, to get past that. And, you know, it really took, geez, a good 12, 15 years to put all that stuff really behind us and work through it. Because, of course, everything's fluid. By the time we were decided to get off Atlantic, because they, you know, we set up a showcase to try and, you know, let's get back on board with the team and all this stuff. We'll do a show in New York City. This was in 1987 when we did Life's a Bitch. We did a showcase specifically for the record company. And they all came early and left early. And it was like, there's your answer. I want to, I don't care. I want to. So we went out and we went indie from then on, and we went from indie to indie to indie to indie to indie, boom, 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 boom. You know, it went through like that. And like I said, it's fluid. So music changed. Right then, it was very much hard thrash or glam. Mm-hmm. And we were neither. And then all of a sudden, it was grunge.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, it was new metal. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, and we, you know, been round the block enough to see it at that point. It's like, we just got to hang in.
Yeah.
The wheel will turn, and all this will be lost. Because, you know, we had to play in front of punks, and, you know, you can't play another punk band. And we went through all that then. So it was just a case of just working through it. So, you know, it was very hard in the States. We ended up doing an album in Germany and an EP and touring there. In Europe, and then of course Europe started getting the grunge new metal thing, and then we'll do stuff in Japan. And then that all changed, and then by like 96, 97, metal started to be popular again in Europe, and things moved on from there.
Yeah, what year was the birthday party?
Oh,
the record, the birthday. Is it the birthday? You know the record I'm talking about, yeah?
No, which one?
Yeah, there's a Raven record that I bought.
John isn't aware of this album.
Songwriting is very different. I can't leave the camera to go find it. And it's
very Glow?
Yes. Is there a record with a birthday cake on the front?
Oh no, that's the covers album.
Yes, that's right.
Covers album. That's Party.
There's the party time. Yeah. Okay. Sorry to confuse. But what was the one you mentioned? Glow. Tell us about the where you were, what year that was when you were writing the songs for that.
That would be 93. And it was a deal because we'd done Heads Up in 92 and toured Europe. And then 93, we were writing songs. We did some demos. My house burned down. And then people broke into the house and stole what was left. So I lost a lot of guitars, and tapes got burned and all this stuff. So through 94, we ended up getting a deal with a Japanese company. And I was writing songs, and I was just like, I'm going to steer clear of anything I'd done before. So there was a lot of weird riffs and stuff, and it was fun. There was some cool songs on there, and we went to tour Japan for the first time on the back of that, which was awesome.
Yes. If you're a Raven fan and you may have missed Glow, and you're not afraid to hear you guys sort of stick your neck out and try something new for a second, I thoroughly enjoyed the record because there were places in your voice you were using that seemed a little less maniacal.
I wasn't using quite as much high voice on that, and a lot of the songs were played in different keys.
Yeah.
So there was stuff in F, there was stuff in C. It was a little different, and some, like a song like Alter was really cool. I loved that. And we actually did a couple of other ones, which ended up on a compilation later on.
Okay.
Enemy was a cool song. And a cool cover of Thin Lizzy, the rocker.
Yes.
That on there.
Yes.
That was great.
So that
I was
covers.
recorded in a studio in New Jersey called The Showplace.
Oh.
And when we got there, we went, this is familiar. We remember playing the gig the first time we came to the States. And it used to be a strip club. And the guy goes, yeah, follow me. And we went to this beautiful, all decked out in wood, the studio, a huge door, and there's the tape room, and there's another door, and he opens the door, and you walk in, you're in the strip club.
Oh, shit.
You guys want to hear this, Mick? Oh, shit, they're off again.
Didn't get much done.
Yeah, it was distracting. Put it that way.
I just remember I wanted to bring up those two records because the covers record is super fun. A lot of your influences are on there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the Glow record is a slight departure. So I feel like and the covers album was what year? Same?
That was the same year as Extermination. So that would be like 2000.
Oh, it's later.
15, I think we recorded it. Came out 2016.
I bought those records around the same time, and it was a nice journey. So
yeah, that was 3 days of insanity. We knew the songs we wanted to do, and went in and did them. It was a little studio in Richmond when I was living in Richmond, Virginia. It was awesome. It's really cool. And, we generally try not to go out and go, okay, you got to, this whole concept of doing a cover song, you have to make it sound exactly like the original, which is utterly pointless. Because more often than not, the original, unless it's something very obscure, is a classic because of how it was done.
Yeah.
It's nothing broke. Why fix it? Why do it?
right.
A couple of those, like the Slade song, you hear it, it's like, Jesus, it sounds just like Slade for a minute. Really fun.
I just remembered the question I was going to ask you earlier that slipped my mind, and that is, you're obviously a certified heavy metal guy, but what would we be surprised to find in your record collection that's not metal?
Oh, jeez.
What's he holding up there?
What's that? Aristocrats.
Aristocrats.
Govan, Brian Bella, and Marco Miniman. That's like jazz comedy from hell.
Wow.
There's a new genre.
That sounds like a Frank Zappa record.
It really does. It's like Zappa without the vocals. It's
wow.
Pretty incredible. Kate Bush. Tori Amos.
Yeah.
Fiona Apple.
Yeah.
What's her name? In the Eyes of the Angel. Can't remember. You know who I mean.
Yeah.
The female singer-songwriters. I really love a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
Prog rock,
Yeah.
Yes, Genesis, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Stuff with just certain kinds of music like that, like the Relay album by Yes. I'll be listening to that till the day I die and still find new stuff in it.
Wow.
It's so genius,
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And it's, you listen to these disparate, widely different pieces of music, and sometimes you go, what's he doing there? And you'll figure that out and go, ooh, I could twist that and come up with something different. And
yeah.
It just expands your vocabulary a little,
What about like Chick Corea and UK?
Oh, hell yeah. Return to Forever.
Yeah, UK.
Alan Holdsworth.
Yes.
UK, Eddie Jobson, Roxy Music. It's a whole, a whole rabbit hole, definitely.
I feel like there is a greater appreciation for prog rock and sort of avant-garde type music over in Europe than there is in the United States. Is that a fair assessment, or is it just my limited experience?
At this point, I think there's like a very large cult following everywhere. Those distinctions that you're making were definitely true at one point.
Yeah.
I think with the advent of the internet, the world is a far smaller place.
Sure.
It's like when we played in England, the northeast of England, renowned for having the best audiences you'll ever get, there in Scotland. And the further south you went, the audience's reaction would be more diluted. And by the time you got to London, it was like,
Arms crossed.
I'm loving this show. I'm having such a good time, And, a little bit of that is still true, but not really, because everyone's watched concerts on the internet and they know to go out and enjoy themselves, which is fabulous.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's broad generalizations of like, the Japanese fans being the most knowledgeable. And funnily enough, stereotypically all very polite and quiet. They're absolute maniacs at the concert.
Really?
The Latin bloods, you got the French, the Italians, the Spanish, South America. Yeah, they're very crazy, very passionate, absolutely. And those things are wonderful. But I think that the internet is like a tide that lifts all boats. So audiences are a lot more receptive to a lot of things these days.
Sure.
But, I think like the prog thing it's got a huge cult following everywhere. I mean, you get people like what's his name, Steve Hackett, doing these tours where he's playing the Genesis albums, the old ones, and it's amazing. And it's people are getting to see stuff they just wouldn't get to see.
Yeah.
They're, a guy like that's flying the flag for that great music. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot
And in this world where we've got all this, hit the laptop, let's have the backing tracks, which is creeping into all music now, which of course is just, it's poison. It's absolutely awful.
So let me ask you about that, because Raven obviously is a 3-piece band. If there's any band that could justify using backing tracks, it would be a 3-piece. And I assume that you're adamantly opposed to that.
Absolutely. Well, let's go back a while. The bands that would be the perfect band to use backing tracks would be this band from England called Queen back in the day. And they never did. Up until 1982, it was just the 4 guys. Then they got a keyboard player. The guy played keyboards and a bit of extra guitar to fatten out the live sound. Mm-hmm. But all those albums, The Night at the Opera and all that, they would arrange it and go out and play it live. And the only thing that was ever taped was Bohemian Rhapsody in the middle, and they would walk off and say, this is a bit much to try and do this live. There it is. We're not even going to pretend. And it was very obvious. What's, when people are pretending to be playing stuff is annoying. And then when you're hearing instruments which no one's on stage playing them is also annoying. And I've seen both of those things happen. I think the last time we played 70,000 Tons, there was about 5 or 6 bands where they didn't have a bass player, and all the songs started with a bass riff. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
Or, raging keyboards, and nobody's there.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the 3 of us being rock fans, we appreciate the raw energy and the spontaneity and even the mistakes we welcome in, especially in a live environment. That's the beauty of rock and roll. And then there's a point, I guess, where the business becomes so big that you have to have a flawless show, which is why you see these arena level bands relying so much on backing tracks and whatever. So it's kind of like, I don't know. I kind of see it from both standpoints. But
well, I'm so against it. It's, why? If you've got any talent at all, the live show shouldn't sound like the studio. They should be 2 separate things, and there should be an overlap. But I mean, because that's how you'll get. Famously, Elton John broke through in the States from a live album. Just a 3-piece. I think it was him, the drummer and the bass player. That was his thing back then.
Yeah.
And all those bands in the 70s that broke through with live albums, none of them they all sounded better than the studio versions to me, which is why I'm such a fan of the live. Because, you think about it, a bunch of guys get on stage and there's nothing. It's silent. They plug in and start playing, and magic is created out of thin air.
Yeah.
Magic is not created by pushing a damn button and, playing back what was done. They might as well have deck chairs there and martinis and go, okay, we're going to play your new album. Tell us about it later.
Yeah.
But a lot of people
would called a DJ. That's a listening party. That's not a live show.
Right.
Yeah, and then you'll get people who are like, yeah, but there's a lot of talent involved in that. It's like, well, they're playing the music and they've got this other thing and they're making scratchy noises and they're putting echoes and it's, is their ability needed to do that? Yes. Is it comparing I don't know, Van Gogh to freaking painting by numbers? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people would argue that the live albums that you're talking about in the 70s were also doctored in the studio. But I think the point you're making is you would rather capture the live performance and then maybe polish it than have it start as something artificial from the beginning. Is that?
Yeah, and a lot of them, there's a lot of albums where they were recorded on multiple nights. So they were able to go, okay, well, this one, he was out of tune or, the mic broke or whatever. You've got to deal with those things. Like the album we did recently, Screaming Murder, Death from Above, the live album with Mike on it. We didn't even know we were recording it. The guy gave Mike the memory stick and said, here, I recorded the show tonight. Oh, okay, great. That went in his bag. We forgot about it until the delays were coming up for Metal City. It's like, we should put something out. This is getting stupid. I hate this 5 years between albums thing. Okay, well, let me look. This is, you've got to hear this concert. There's only one thing wrong with it. The bass guitar, you broke a string in the middle of Hell Patrol. So there's no bass for like 10 seconds. So copied the bass from the second verse and put it in the first verse, and there it was.
Done.
Yeah, yeah. So
I mean, even when people talk about things like "Live and Dangerous" by Thin Lizzy, oh, it's overdub. Well, you can hear the tapes now, and there's like maybe 2 or 3 stupid little things they fixed. And
sure,
yeah, but again, to your point, yes, that's more honest, and at least it's maybe stylized, but it's a stylized snapshot of what happened that night,
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, it's not a digital member of the band.
No.
Right.
Not a robot.
Deep Purple, made in Japan. Uriah Heep Live. Those are real live albums, right down the line. And,
I want to say Rush, All the World's a Stage.
Rush, All the World's a Stage. Fantastic album.
Totally live.
My favorite album by them. Love it.
Yeah, I have it framed somewhere.
What are your tour plans for All Hell's Breaking Loose? Are we going to see you in the States? Yeah, we are fighting with agents and stuff right now. Hopefully we'll be out in October. That's what we're working on. Oh, great.
You'll
nice.
be hearing about that very, very soon. We're off to Europe in July for a short run. We've got a couple of festivals and some dates in between. We'll also be doing Europe in September. Same thing. There's a couple of festivals and we're doing a bunch of dates in between. It's been weird over there because of the cancellations. We've kind of just stepped back a little bit because festivals and tours, and when they cancel and people have bought tickets, people are a lot less likely to buy tickets up front the next time around.
Yeah.
And that scares the promoters. And they're like, well, we don't know who's coming, so we're not taking the risk, so we're canceling.
Right.
And that just perpetuates that. It's a vicious circle. So hopefully we're going to start getting out of that. And that's all precipitated from the fallout of the pandemic, of course.
Yeah.
And don't get me started on that shit.
Don't
But I mean,
that's a whole nother
one of the
episode.
reasons why we'll be doing the bigger festivals next year is because the rollover effect of having 2 years basically of no festivals, and the bands that were booked to do 2020 ended up doing 2022, and the bands that were going to be doing 2021 ended up doing 2023, and by next year it'll get a little more normal, you know.
Right. Yeah. Well, I hope the record brings you through America, because it's a great album, and of course your fans love to see you live. But I also understand how, economically difficult it can be to put a tour on the road these days. So
we run a pretty tight ship, but we'll make it happen. We definitely want to come out and play some of these songs. These songs are so much fun, fun to play.
Yeah.
Change it up. Because the last time we were out, we did the Wiped Out album. It was the 40th anniversary for that last year. And that was cool. That was different. This year we did All for One in the UK and some European shows too. Now we've got the new album coming out. It's like, well, you can't do it all. We'll be on stage about 4 hours. So, there'll be a shout out for All for One, but we want to do new music. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then next year is the 50th anniversary of the band.
Wow. 50 years. Oh my God.
Outrageous.
That is crazy, man.
That is outrageous.
Well, you guys still have your health. You're still
He's crossing his fingers.
Mentally and physically.
Mentally is up. Yeah, that's still out. The verdict is still out on that.
Yeah.
Well,
the verdict's always been out on that.
Well, that's kind of the idea behind Raven. That's part of the charm of Raven, in my opinion, has always been this insanity clause. You have to have that in order for you to be Raven. So
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's we're loud, we're crazy, we're violent, but there's a twinkle in our eye and we smile as we beat you over the head.
Yes. Well, it's a great record.
Yes.
And I can't wait to have my hands on a proper copy of it.
Oh yeah, more crazy artwork inside, which is always fun. Yeah.
Awesome. Nice.
And I'm just super proud to be a Raven fan. I champion you guys all the time.
He does.
Thank you.
He wears your shirt on stage all the time. Jason's always wearing a Raven t-shirt.
Yeah. It's true.
Yep, it is. But yeah, a great new record called All Hell's Breaking Loose comes out June 30th. It'll be out and available by the time you hear or watch this episode. And John, man, thank you so much for joining us today. It's always a pleasure talking to you. This is your second time on our show, and we couldn't be happier to have you. You're always a great guest and a lot of fun to hang out with. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, guys. Much appreciated.
Absolutely.
And, see you guys in October with a bit of luck.
Yeah. I hope so. On behalf of my co-host, Jason McMaster, I'm Metal Dave Glessner, along with our special guest today, John Gallagher, on the Talk Louder podcast.